Winfried, welcome to this interview all the way from Zurich.
In my view, strong brands, they drive more growth ultimately than short-term sales activation.
Hello, I'm Kevin Huang, Chief Operating Officer of the South China Morning Post. With great pleasure, I welcome Dr Winfried Daun, Group Head of Advertising, Brand, Strategy and Media at UBS, to our studio today. We'll learn about building global brands in Asia, the business case for investing in brands, and why trusted content is so important today. Winfried, welcome to this interview and joining us from all the way from Zurich. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited, Kevin.
So at the World Media Awards 2023 recently, you talked about growing content creation capabilities of publishers. Tell me why trusted content is so important for brands such as UBS.
Yeah. So indeed, I say that, and it was a meeting where a lot of the top publishing brands were present. And I say that because, and this seems an obvious thing, trusted content is more important and more relevant to all of us in our daily lives, right? We sadly live in an age of disinformation, of fake news, of AI-generated artifacts. So having trusted sources of information that help you go through life, inform your decisions, seems like a vital thing to me. And UBS in its own right has been a content provider for a long time. It's an essential part of our value proposition to provide our clients with data, with research, with insights that will inform their strategy and their decision making. And we've been doing this for 160 years. So we've been able to establish a lot of trust with our client base. At the same time, as we go to a broader audience, it is important for us to work with trusted partners, with strong media brands, global and local, to generate and to offer content that is appealing, that is engaging, and most of all, is trusted by the audience. So that's why I made that point.
And I think that's really important because as a bank in itself, you are in the business of trust. And I think partner with like-minded, trusted content creators
Absolutely.
and brands is very important in this world of, as you mentioned, AI-generated content and misinformation.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for that. We searched in our archive and we found that UBS first opened its Hong Kong office, then known as the Union Bank of Switzerland, in 1964. I wanted to ask, how, in your point of view, what is the difference between building a brand in Asia versus the West, and what are the key differences?
Yeah, so this is an exciting topic, right? 1964, that means that next year we'll be celebrating 60 years in the city. Which is huge for us. It's a big deal. We're very, very proud to have set foot into Hong Kong this early. And in terms of building brands in Asia, I personally think that the mechanics of building a brand don't necessarily differ this much, whether you do it in Asia or in the US or in Europe. At the end of the day, it's about articulating a promise to your audience that is both relevant and appealing, and that you can then deliver, and ideally you over-deliver on that promise. Now, that doesn't mean that one size fits all, right? It's obvious that as you go into regions and into markets, you have to make sure that the topics, the message, the tonality of the message, your imagery, the cultural references you're making, all of that needs to be attuned to the market and to the region. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that any global brand could make is to look at Asia and consider it one homogeneous market. We all know, and you know that much better than I do, that this is not true. And any brand communication that you run in a market like China will be quite different from what you would want to do in Indonesia or Thailand. At the same time, I'm not necessarily an advocate for hyper-localization per se, just because there is also an appeal to global brands. When you travel and you realize that you recognize a Rolex ad or a Louis Vuitton ad, no matter where you are in the world, there's also value in that. So cutting the right balance between being recognized as what we are, a truly global brand that is present in all regions of the world, while at the same time acknowledging local needs and also nuances I think that's something that you have to get right. And you don't do it once. You have to do it every time that you create brand communication.
Yeah, and I think it's very challenging because, like you said, Asia is so many different cities, so many different cultures, and a lot of times, people compare Hong Kong and Singapore, who seems to have a lot of similarities, but I think the local culture and nuances are quite different in both of these cities. And also because of changing times and environment, what's important to me today was not the same that was important to me 5 years ago. And so adjusting and making it locally relevant to the audience you speak while maintaining that global trusted brand is very, very important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that part of this whole local trusted relevance is also working with partners in the region. Say in a market like China, it is an integral part of our strategy to also work with trusted brands on the ground to create content, to create messaging that people trust, and hence help us stand out as a differentiated brand.
Winfried, you're obviously a very well-respected global marketer. You've been in the marketing industry for more than 20 years now. There in the industry, there's always been this debate, especially in the last decade or so, about brand marketing versus performance marketing. And it is no secret that the global economy is slowing down, especially in as a lot of people have forecasted in 2024. How are you making a case to your board and at UBS about investing in brand marketing, especially in the new year?
Yeah, so you're right, Kevin. That is indeed the story of my life. I've been in this business for more than 20 years, and this is one of the topics that will never go away. Actually, it is gaining in importance as budgets are tight, the economy may be slowing down, who knows. And so there is a lot of scrutiny on brand investment. Now, the first thing that I'll say is, and I'm a passionate brand believer, in my view, strong brands not only drive the growth of a business, they drive more growth ultimately than short-term sales activation. And for me, that's not a question of belief. There is abundant evidence that is true. And sometimes I reference trips that I'm making. So when I go to the US, for instance, and someone asks me, who are you working for? And I say, I'm working for UBS. I can be sure that there's always someone who says, oh, you and us. And that is so astonishing because that is a campaign we decommissioned 15 years ago, and yet it sticks. It sticks. It's a brand message that somehow has embedded itself in the brains of people. And I can bet you that no one would remember some short-term campaign that we just did for a few weeks or months, even 2 years ago. So brand does build business, but brand is a long-term game. Very often, the fundamental and very substantial growth that a strong brand brings, first of all, shows only after a couple of years, and then delivers over several years more. And that is obviously at odds with how businesses set their financial targets and are also reported on their targets. And I'm not criticizing that. That's the effect of corporate life, and no brand lives outside of corporate life. But the reality is that you have to balance these things off, and therefore any meaningful business case has to incorporate both sides. You have to be able to show how the enormously long tail of brand building will drive growth for years to come, whereas at the same time, short-term performance through web traffic, through search engine advertising, through short-term lead activation, events, etc., how that is another part and an important part of your strategy, but it requires both.
If I may just say, I think brand marketing is the investment vehicle that will keep on paying dividends over a very, very long term.
Absolutely.
Winfried, how would you sum up your 2023 in one word?
Surprising. A couple of things happened. We all know that took us a little bit by surprise, but there we are. It was a surprising year.
And what do you forecast your 2024 to look like in one word?
I'd say opportunity. And I say that because you and I talked a little bit about building a case for brand investment, and how, especially for the next couple of years, we've been able to convince also our board that an investment in the brand and in strong visibility for the brand is important. And so I dare say we've got a couple of things up our sleeve. And you can stay tuned. Quite a few things will be happening as of next year.
Great. We can't wait to see what you have launching at UBS in 2024. And there we have Dr. Winfried Daun of UBS. Thank you so much for joining us in the 2024 Marketing Prediction Series.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.